Hello everyone, welcome back to Asturis City in City Skylines. We built the two dams and did some big landscaping in the last episode. Today we will continue with that project, but in a slightly different area, because we will move back towards the city, to that 3-level stacked bridge, and we will do some highway infrastructure that will connect to that valley where the two dams are. This is quite an important step since we need to be prepared to link that new area to the rest of the city, and together with that, it's a great opportunity to also complete the bridge on its other side. So let's go do it. Alright, so we are going to start with that highway infrastructure, and since I built this bridge before I did that previous interchange, we have to switch the highways, because in here I was still using the hanging highways, and then I switched to the MSE, Metropolitan State Expressway, I think they're called in the workshop, just so we have exactly the same networks on the entire map. And these are just perfect for these kinds of projects, like I explained in that highway episode, the first one. Alright, so this is pretty self-explanatory. As you can see here, we are just going to link that highway that we kind of prepared on that newer part of the entire project, as you can see on that newer dam. And it's just going to, twist around in the valley, around the river. I don't really want to have it completely straight, of course, because that would be just a little too boring. So we are just going to provide a couple of curves, couple of turns, and then eventually it's going to reach that bridge. Now, at the bridge, we need to build some kind of a 3-way interchange. So it's basically going to be some kind of like a trumpet interchange or that kind of style. We have some kind of a problem with the terrain, as you can see, but I don't really mind changing the terrain quite extensively in this area to fit it. Although, there is one thing that we need to pay attention, and that is the bridge structure, because there is that cable stretched to hold the entire bridge. And if you remember, when I was first doing this bridge, the main point of this design is that there are these two big blocks that are just having the cable stretched between them, right? And these blocks are just in the side of the mountain, and that's it. So those we cannot move. And it obviously means that they need to have that mountain at them, right? So we cannot really cut the mountain or just, make the highway go through like directly, very nearby to that anchoring point. It would just look a little bit stupid. So I need to just stay away from that and need to do all these loops in different positions. It was kind of clear that most of this interchange will have to be underground. Otherwise, there's just not enough space if I want to maintain some reasonable radii for the curves, They are probably a little bit lower right now than I would like to, but there's just not enough space in this place. But it's gonna be, absolutely fine. So I finally decided that we are just going to keep this place very, very minimalistic, very simple. There's basically only going to be this kind of like a turn towards the highway, towards the city. And it's going to have a bunch of these splits and merges. And then there's going to be like a huge tunnel entrance for multiple tunnels, actually, like multiple networks. And that's just going to be it. Yeah, everything is going to go underground. Now, since I'm already doing these kinds of splits, and since I already had these markings prepared from last time, and I do want to use the same markings from last time, because, I do want to have the highways somewhat uniform throughout the city. So I'm just, I'm not showing it here in the time-lapse, but I'm just going to that interchange, the previous one from 3 episodes back, I'm not sure right now, 3 probably. And I'm just, picking those with intersection marking tools and just copy pasting them right here as I'm building this place. By the way, what I'm doing right here, these were just some kind of like temporary connections or like preliminary, ways, loops, but eventually I just did it a little bit differently. So this place there on the left, that's going to be the only loop. And as you can see here, I'm just doing some changes, and most of these connections are going to happen underground. So why does this highway need to be an interchange? Like, why are we just, having that tunnel go straight? Well, because there's going to be some kind of an industrial zone. I suppose I already mentioned that, or maybe this is like a new spoiler right now, but there is going to be like an industrial zone on that part of the bay surrounding the space elevator. So I'm planning on building some kind of a bigger harbor, cargo harbor for the space elevator. That's where the barges are gonna go back and forth. There is already like a temporary harbor in there just so we can have some vehicles right from episode 1, but there's gonna be like a bigger, beefier industrial zone as well, so that there will be, just some more motivation for the cargo to just travel around the bay, and also some of the rivers, or well, the one river that doesn't have the dams. Obviously, I'm not really sure if I mentioned it. I was definitely talking about it on the streams though, that I'm probably going to get rid of barges going through that river with the dams, because I was taking inspiration from that Niagara River, and obviously there needs to be some sort of falls, upstream, so that the dams make some kind of sense. And it's probably going to be like reasonably short. I'm not going to build it on this map. I already made my decision. I'm not going to bother with the water physics, or I don't have the patience. But it means that kind of lore-wise of the city, like if we dealt with lore of the city, it means that there's probably going to be some kind of falls further upstream, maybe just a couple of kilometers. So there's absolutely no reason why barges should go there. I was thinking of maybe doing like a cargo harbor at the dams, but why? It's just very close to the space elevator anyway, so it's gonna be absolutely fine if we just do the barges on that other river, and there are gonna be barges from that industrial zone that we are going to build in some far future, I suppose. And we can just sprinkle in a couple of more harbors around, or like cargo ports around the bay on the other side as well, and in different places on the coastline. And maybe I can figure out maybe I could also bring in some cargo ships from outside of the map, although, well, we will see. If I'm going to find some good models for that, I don't particularly like the physics, like how they behave, the outside ships, how they pull to the port and all that, but we will see. So maybe there's more opportunities for some boat traffic or ship traffic. Now anyway, while I was talking about that, we already finished the highway, and now we are preparing for some kind of structures and for some kind of other infrastructure around here. So this place, right, it's very heavy with the infrastructure, but we also have the trams aiming in here, and also the pedestrian path, because the bridge has all of those networks. So why bother even putting the trams into this area if I'm not going to provide any buildings? So we have to provide some buildings. Now, like I already mentioned, and as you can see, this terrain is not exactly all that suited for some sort of like a big city district, or I don't know, some kind of blocks of buildings. So I decided that I'm just going to fill these little valleys with some random shapes of roads, and we are going to turn it into some kind of a like low-ish density, kind of like a suburb, which is going to be connected to that tram stop that I was doing right there. There are also trains, passenger and cargo trains, going on that stacked bridge. I just made them like diverge away from the main cable basically and go into their own tunnels. But there are not going to be any train stations in here because this place is going to be too low density for that. So the trams are going to fill that purpose over here, and it's going to be perfectly fine. Now, what am I doing? Did I go crazy with this building? Like, what is this? I just said that this is going to be like a low-density neighborhood, and suddenly there's this super unique building. Well, why not? It's like a good prominent place for it. This building definitely needs to be somewhere alone. It needs to be visible. And it's kind of short at the same time, so I would not really place it in the downtown or anywhere like that. And this is actually a perfect place for it. It's kind of like on this little hill in the center of that highway loop. It's kind of like perching there, just overlooking, the city, basically, the rest of the city from this direction on the side of that bridge. So it's even making the bridge itself a little bit more like stand out. So yeah, it's a perfect thing to place there. Later I'm going to put some night lights, going to illuminate it, so even suburbs like these can have something a little bit more colorful and unique during the night. This building in Asturis could probably be some kind of a museum. It could be I don't know, some kind of observatory maybe, or something like that. Some kind of public building. So it's just a nice thing to place here, and it's also a very nice decoration as well. It's going to be connected to that tram station basically, because all of these roads are going to lead to it. So it's not really going to be that long walk. Now, I'm going to just put a couple of like super random buildings over here. I already have some of these like 2-floor structures. I don't really want to put in this place like single family houses or something. That doesn't really feel appropriate. We are very close to the city still. So I'm just using all of these, I'm not sure how to call them. I suppose they might even be called medium density houses, but as you can see, I'm not really placing them all that wall to wall or street to street, I suppose. There are large open areas between them, so overall this place is very much low density compared to the rest of the city, that's for sure, but still not super low density. All right, now we are going to also provide some kind of final structure for this end of the bridge. We are going to do it with the same materials somewhat as the supports of the bridge on the bridge itself, these pillars or beams. And in here we obviously need to create some kind of like H-shaped pillars or supports, so that we are also going to accommodate the railway. And overall just trying to make it fit with the rest of the bridge. I suppose that the geometry is not particularly great because I don't really know why, but I really wanted to make it symmetrical. So I was thinking of maybe like turning the pedestrian path away from the tram, so that it just goes to the other side of the bridge, but that didn't really make much sense. I was also trying to make like a pedestrian bridge, like an intersection basically, so that one arm is going to go towards that unique building right there, that globe. But that also looked a little bit strange. So this is kind of like a finished result of some kind of trial and error. So I tried many different possibilities in here, and this kind of looked the best, because the entire area, when it comes to the infrastructure, on one hand, it's kind of crowded, because there are these different types of networks. But on the other hand, it's kind of minimalistic. Yeah, the highway interchange is mostly hidden underground, like I mentioned. There's just a couple of exits, merges, places. And the same thing goes for the train. The train just goes in the tunnel, really. There's not much to say about that. So it wouldn't really make much sense to suddenly make it super complicated with the pedestrian paths, for example, or the trams or something else, right? So this is the result, and it's, okay, it's working fine. I suppose that, yeah, sure, this tram stop is maybe a tiny little bit further away from that unique globe building, but not really, it's within walking distance anyway. And I suppose that if some kind of tourists or citizens are going into these places, then they are already, going for like a hike or something. So it's probably going to be okay. Maybe I can just put some bus lines into this area further, maybe like the Ollie buses or something more futuristic if I find it. But that's not really important. Let's now focus on what I'm building in here. Oh yeah, so this is kind of interesting. In this place, I needed to detail this tram stop. And I wanted to do it just a little bit differently. I wanted to use some different technique. I knew that I need to provide some kind of surfaces around it, because the default stop sizes for these LRT tracks are kind of small. And also, we are on the side of the bay in here. Like I said, with that globe building, it's basically overlooking the rest of the city. So why not provide some kind of like a viewing platform, yeah? So even if you are maybe living in the city or on the other side of this river, on the other side of this bridge, you can just, take one station with the tram, go here, and just there's going to be a couple of benches, just chill there, look at the rest of the city, maybe even during the night or something, look at it. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do over here. Now, I'm just going to be using these paths because that's what we already have on the bridge. So I'm kind of trying to have the same material going on here. And then I'm just using Node Controller quite heavily to cover the default platforms over here, because I really did not want to bother with that like super customized station like I'm doing everywhere else. So we also need to pay attention to terrain and all of that. So this is kind of in a way, the easiest solution actually. And also with Node Controller, I'm creating these like recessed areas where people are going to be able to cross the tracks. And then there's going to be like this D-shaped kind of like a viewing platform. Yeah, it's just going to have the grass in the center. There's going to be some trees later, and it's all going to be a little bit separated from that actual tram stop. And of course, later I'm going to add some benches, and it's just going to be overall a little bit more useful for pedestrians. Yeah, this is that place that I was talking about, that place for crossing the tracks. There are obviously going to be some invisible pedestrian paths to make all of this functional later. And of course, I must not forget to detail the stop with the Asturis stop signs. So there they are. Now, I did not really want to put any kind of super large shelters or anything like that, just like I'm doing with some other stations. But at the same time, it kind of felt like, yeah, this place needs something, because it's kind of like a remote stop. Maybe the frequency of trams is not going to be all that great over here. So, just these super simple shelters. And then I'm going to finish it with those tried and true benches, the yellow ones. All right. So that's pretty much done. Now I'm going to return to this globe building, and we just need to, do something to it. The building on its own is fine. I don't really want to change it too much, but it needs to have some sort of an entrance, so people can reach it, and just at the entrance there's going to be something a little bit more interesting. So I basically just encircled it with this pedestrian path. I'm not really sure why now that I'm looking at it, but I suppose it's like a nice thing to do there. And then I'm going to do just this little dead end road, maybe with like a couple of parking spots or something, and the bridge over here, which is of course the main entrance and the only entrance. And then just fiddling with some details of this landscaping. So for example, using that terraforming network to flatten the slope over here, of course embanking it with the Node Controller, so that we have a nice embankment in here on the side of this little parking lot, and then some kind of retaining wall with this little like a filler pavement. So that's very straightforward, not much else to it. I'm later going to put some planters at the entrance, and that's literally going to be it. I don't really want to focus on it too much, because the main point is the building itself, not really its surroundings. I suppose that this place is also going to be much better when I'm going to start placing trees on all of these slopes and cliffs around it. Oh yeah, one last thing. I completely forgot about it actually. I turned the building into a park life park, and I created these park entrances, invisible park entrances in here, and then a couple of these invisible pedestrian paths. And then inside of the building, I'm just going to place these like entertainment cubes that are like supposed to simulate the actual buildings from Park Life. Yeah, so there is some reason for people to walk into this structure. I suppose that the structure is a unique building already, but since I'm not really doing tourism in the city, citizens of the city are not really using all that much the unique buildings, but the Park Life parks, they do. Yeah, so there are, for example, Park Life buildings and zones at the space elevator. People are using that. That's kind of nice. And this is like a second one. So I suppose that I can be doing these a couple more times in the city. I think I did that for that little island, didn't I? That's in that like a marina bay. I'm not sure. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. Anyway, now we are going to do this tunnel entrance. And these kinds of tunnel entrances are always kind of strange. So since I was already using the same highways, the same markings, I might as well just use exactly the same style of tunnel entrances like I already established with that first highway interchange. So that's exactly this. These kinds of highway entrances or highway tunnel entrances, by default, especially with the vanilla highways, they are looking very heavy, kind of like bunkers, which is on its own not exactly looking all that great. But if you're going to make it into like a good-looking bunker, then it can actually look better. Yeah, so you're not really going to make it lighter or anything, because you can obviously only add mass around it with like procedural objects or something. You cannot really make the actual network model smaller. Node controller, yeah, sure, but then cars are not gonna really use it all that well. So this is basically the only option. If I want to somehow unify those tunnel entrances, I just need to make them into something much bigger. And, let's just go all the way. So let's just make it into some kind of brutalist structure just like that. It's kind of fitting because right on the other side of the river, we have that concrete heavy area. So it's kind of fitting. So, why not? Now, going to finish the rest of these markings. As you can see, going to use exactly the same colors as before. So the red is for merging or like danger or something. Blue is for just like a long curve. Yellow, I believe, is just like you have to choose. You cannot continue straight or something like that. Basically kind of like danger again. And green is turning lane. All right, so completely random colors like that. It's just something to put on the highways, so it's not completely uniform. Now, we are going to prepare this tram line, and I just want to have it twist around this entire ridge so that it's going to be like a scenic route, I suppose, through this area. And it's going to have a second tram stop, which is going to serve this, again, some sort of a medium, low density residential suburb, basically. Okay. So I'm also preparing these kinds of roads. By the way, these roads, they are not connecting to the highway just yet. Definitely not at this side of the ridge. They are going to basically circle around the entire ridge. And at the industrial zone, they are going to connect to the highway. So there is going to be a possibility for just car traffic through this area. But obviously, public transport is going to be so much more convenient because you can just hop on the tram over here and directly continue towards the rest of the city. Cars will need to just, like I said, circle around the ridge and join the highway. So highway right now is the only option to cross the river by car, right? Yeah, but it makes sense again because this area is really not that large to have its own highway entrance. So, and we don't really have that space for it. So this is pretty much the only solution anyway. So now I also wanted to do this little thing where the pedestrian path is still going to continue along the tram tracks, but it's going to be elevated. It's going to go higher so that, again, it's going to be like a viewing area for the rest of the city. So people are not going to have the view obstructed by the passing trams, yeah, or the catenaries, for example, or some kind of fences or like that, yeah. So the pedestrian path is just going to nicely go up like that. It's even going to make sense in regards to the terrain because we are on the sloped terrain. So of course the network closer to the ridge needs to be a little bit higher so that it fits the slope. So even that is, kind of convenient. There's just going to be this retaining wall between the tram tracks and the path. And overall, it's just looking very nice. Right now, it's looking very empty, but trust me, when I'm later going to put trees everywhere in here, it's going to make so much more sense. Yeah. So just wait. It's going to be just a couple of moments. Now, in here, same buildings as before. Actually, a couple of different ones, like mixed-use buildings at the tram stop. I think this building that I'm placing here is like an elementary school or something. And that's pretty much going to be it. Just a smaller block, although down here I'm going to use just some kind of small streets and just to populate that slope area with a couple more rows of some houses, yeah? And down here, there's going to be this pedestrian path, which is just twisting nicely all the way to the sea, to the coastline. And down there, there's going to be a beach, just like a small beach. And that's going to be it. Yeah, nothing all that fancy. And later, there's just going to be a whole bunch of rocks and trees and all kinds of natural decoration, which is going to go really well with that beach sand color. Yeah, so basically the sand is just like an excuse to use different color, not much else to it. All right, lots of landscaping, of course, because I'm using lots of networks. Networks are kind of difficult for terrain in the game. They are flattening the area around it a lot, and I just need to make the terrain fit the networks and all the things that I built over here so that it looks like it fits, yeah? And it was not actually built like that, but it was built to fit the terrain. Exactly what I was mentioning before, even though in here I am actually using some low density houses, like single houses, as you can see, on those lower levels closer to the water. And this is of course the most satisfying part, using all the rocks and trees. Yeah, so this is the part in Asturis, in these kinds of remote builds, where everything is just going to start making sense. Everything is going to start looking 1,000 times better with all these natural details. And look at that, just a couple of clicks with the tree brush, and this place is super green suddenly and really, really good looking. Alright, so now we are going to focus on the night views, and we have one thing that I forgot to do, or well, I just didn't do, and that's some kind of lights for the stacked bridge. Now, I did not really want to make it super colorful, super bright, so I decided that we are just going to highlight some of the structural elements. We are going to highlight the pillars, as you can see, or the holders from the cable, main cable, and the beams, the 3 levels of the beams. So you're going to see that in the cinematic, how it's just making the bridge, just visible during the night, at least somewhat. And also there were some kind of lights that I placed on the top of the globe, so it's going to glow similarly to the stadium building. So, that's kind of nice how both of that works together. Well, that's it. As you can see, we just populated this side of that huge ridge on the other side of this river. We finished the stacked bridge with all the infrastructure around it. There's no traffic right now on this highway because it doesn't go anywhere. It just goes towards the dams. But there are no buildings there, no reason for people to go there. That's all going to change in the next episode, though. We are going to build like a tiny highway interchange, highway exit, and some kind of industrial areas around the dam, together with some more landscaping and just tying up some things around the dam. All right, so this was just a continuation of that project, of that overall area. So now we finally can expand into that area. We have the infrastructure prepared, and in some distant future we also have all the infrastructure prepared for that industry. That is basically going to be to the right of this view, just on the other side of that ridge that is coming into view right there. Right, so we also don't have any trains right now going in this direction. We have basically just like a temporary train station for the passengers, temporary station for cargo trains, but there's just a couple of trains going there. There are lots of people using the trams, though. As you can see, these people that just got off the tram, they are going in that direction, which is basically towards all of these houses there in the center, and to that globe building where we did put that Parklife Park, and there are lots of people going towards it. So that's really nice to see that the tram infrastructure is used. Unfortunately, the path going across the bridge is not really that used. I'm not really sure why. I was thinking that some like bicycles are going to be going there, but everyone just takes the tram, which is also very good. These are the night lights. As you can see, the bridge is finally a little bit more visible during the night, so it follows the tradition of the illuminated bridges in Asturis. But anyway, that is going to be all for today. I already mentioned the plans for next episode, so stay tuned for that. If you like this episode, then please do all the clicking, liking, and all the things below the video to help it. And also big thanks to all the channel members. I really appreciate all your support, guys. Thank you very much. All right, take care. Goodbye.